where they are. I wanted to just ask quickly, and I know Ron, you're still president of the sanitation board, correct? I'm sure directing the questions appropriately, but let you know that we have received that application for 436 units plus a senior center, community center. I just wanted to see where you are in your conversations with the county or how, where that portion might be, so we can kind of go through the check boxes.
Well, over the last several years, 3 to 4 years, we have been in contact with the county, not recently. And actually this Thursday, they're coming to meet with us, present, I suspect, another proposal. Certainly, they're bringing with them another proposal. And we have worked with them, Hunter, and we do want to work with them. But it's a big project. It's very involved, lots of pieces, as we all know. And that's where we stand today, and we'll know more hopefully come Thursday.
Or the sanitation district members, any questions specific to this, Andrew?
Yeah, can I ask just a clarification, because you said 436 plus 60 for senior. I was under the impression it's 436. That includes,
Yep, excuse me.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Numbers are not my strong suit, so I appreciate it. Yeah, good call. So I think that is informative enough for me that we probably will have to probably attend your meeting. Or staff just to hear the presentation and stay in touch with that, so we know where the process is going, so we can kind of stay in lockstep. Our application needs to see where you are and be available also to answer any questions on our front. So
where and when is the meeting?
Thursday.
At Hoop Farm.
5:30.
Yes, at 5:30.
Food farm for anybody who didn't catch that. Straight downhill. Excellent. I believe I don't personally have any more questions. I think it's mostly for us and our staff and anything else we need from this quick and short gathering just to see where we're at. I just know I appreciate that. I think we've all been talking about Lake Hill. It seems like it's getting a little closer, and we'll see what that looks like.
What kind of follow-up could we all do, or I mean, what would that look like after your meeting on Thursday? I guess you're going. I know somebody will go and
Yeah,
come back.
we'll try to, we'll try to see if we can get someone in attendance, and if nothing else, we can the department can reach out and just get the cliff notes, see where we're at, and any further information we might need for our application. Vice versa, if you all need anything else, always avail staff to you with that process.
And we do appreciate the town of Frisco working with Matt. Our staff is doing a great job for just a few of them, and we're very proud of them, and we do appreciate you guys working with Matt, especially. And I know that you work very close together. So thanks, board.
Likewise, I think the sanitation district and public works, often I bet most of the community don't really know who's in charge of what, or that there is even a difference in leadership or employment or anything else. And I do know that both sides work really well together between Matt and his team and Jeff and his team. Often I think are looking after each other and looking out for each other for the greater good. So I appreciate that willingness always.
And our meetings are open, and no one ever comes to us. It's 5:30 this Thursday, and it's every other month. You guys want to hear what the county has to say? Come, you can.
Suggested a rebranding before you post them.
Yeah. It doesn't help.
I had nothing else. I knew it would be a kind of a quick conversation. It was just mostly we wanted to do the meet and greet again because it's been a while, and then make sure that we know that we're doing our due diligence and that you all are as well. Betterment of the whole community that we serve. So yes, step one is the work. So yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Welcome to stick around for dinner. Yeah. More fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Good seeing you. Thank you.
There is this.
Well, I don't know.
Yes. Colin, you seem really cool there, like. You have potatoes in your hands pretty right.
Yes.
No. Christiane, good to see you. Just right over. Well, that's right. Good job. Good to see you. Yeah.
You may need them again, so.
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's all. It's like, it's you don't have to present, that's very. So good. It was great. 30th anniversary. Okay, it's good. How are you? Good. Yeah. All right. We good. I think we're recording. I get thumbs up from the command center back in the corner there. Next up this evening on our work session agenda is agenda item number 2. And I don't know where I am on my agenda anymore. But it is a continuing discussion on our table here with the budget request from the police department, and I'll welcome Wickman and Dr. Ross to join us this evening and for filling us in on the policy and the background for it. Your way.
And Sergeant Robinson start off because you got the top one.
Big, that's big, yeah. So one of the largest struggles, and I know that this has been presented to you in the past and everything, and the money for this has been allocated for 2024. One of the largest struggles with the PD since I've been here that we've seen is recruitment and retainment of officers. And with agencies in our backyard or surrounding areas providing these types of benefits already, this is something that we're looking to do to try to stay competitive with those agencies. Because in the long run, the longer officers are here within this community and gaining experience within Frisco, that is what creates better officers. And with the average lifespan of an officer since 2017 that has come and left being 2.49 years, that's not a long time. So this is proven with other agencies to be a great benefit to officers and everything, to kind of keep them within that agency. And it boils down to what their benefits are and everything. People aren't going to leave for a $2,000 to $3,000 raise and go to Dillon. But when you're looking at money, large sums and large benefits for people that are traveling, because a lot of officers can't afford to buy a house in Frisco or even Summit County. So those benefits add up to them and it becomes something that can retain them. And also with lateral positions that we're seeing more of, it's something that people look at when they're applying at agencies.
Let me interrupt.
Mhm.
So I spoke with the sheriff today. I spoke with the sheriff of Eagle County. Spoke with Chief Haley of Avon. And I just want to give you some statistics here. Eagle County Sheriff's Office has 54 vehicles. They're all take home. Summit County Sheriff, 54 vehicles, take home. Dale Police Department, 24, take home. Colorado State Patrol, 16. Avon Police Department, 15. Eagle Police Department, 12. Assault, 12. And Colorado Marshal's Office, 13, and Snowmass Village, 11. And additionally, the Sheriff's Department just gave their folks a start as a cadet, 79,000. Now, we just upped ours to 69,000. We've already got a $10,000 deficit in terms of starting wage. Plus they get a vehicle. Continue, sir.
Just for clarification, all those jurisdictions you listed off, they all have take-home vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, how many vehicles do we have?
Currently we have 6.
How many officers?
Right now, including the 4 that are in the academy, we would have 13 total. Sworn members.
The budget for 14 detective.
Yes.
So ideal target 14 with the detective.
So the benefits of this program don't only just stem to the cops and the officers themselves. You see an immediate, quicker response for emergent type calls, which honestly, we've been seeing more and more of within this county. I know everybody's seen the news and everything of what's been going on. So we've had an uptick in these types of calls where people do have to get called in on their days off or early. So being able to respond to those calls quicker and being able to, as soon as you get into town, be able to assist whether you're going to that scene or covering the road. For instance, the Safeway incident. I got called in on my day off, was able to respond to the scene quicker because I have my own equipment for the new emergency response team that I carry in my truck. So I didn't have to come to the police department, grab all of my gear and everything, but that is personally owned equipment that I have purchased over the years. But we had one of our officers coming from the metro area, and I called him and told him, as soon as you come through the tunnel, get on and start handling calls from the phone. As soon as he hit Frisco, he was able to handle the calls because the 2 Frisco cops that were already on duty were already on scene, and I was on scene by that time as well. So he was able to then handle all of the surrounding calls within the town because he had a car already. So as soon as he came through the tunnel, he was on our channel, he was hearing what was going on, he logged into his MDC and could start fielding calls and everything right then and there. Without that, it probably would have been another hour or so before we had a cop on the streets to handle the surrounding calls at a minimum, just for him getting here, getting his car upfitted, everything, getting all his gear on, all that stuff. So the community sees a benefit just from that, us being able to respond faster. Since we've started the take home pseudo policy during their work week, they can drive to and from work. We've had multiple incidents where an officer driving to work has been able to assist another agency and even has been the first on scene to roll up on a rollover accident at the 205 that hadn't even been called in yet. So especially with the driving conditions, the winters up here and everything, there's accidents all the time. So if I'm coming over Hoosier at 5 o'clock in the morning in a marked patrol vehicle, roll up on an accident, I now have red and blue emergency lights and a radio to get that information out, get fire and EMS rolling to, you know, potentially help those people much faster than it would have. And prevent further accidents, because if I just pull my personal vehicle over without red and blue lights and it's that bad, now there's a potential of the next car smacking into the whole scene and everything without slowing down. So the community sees a benefit in just faster responses and being able to assist within the county much quicker. There's also the benefit of just being more present throughout the county. If we're driving on I-70 to the tunnel, people naturally, everybody does it, people naturally slow down when they see a cop car because they're like, oh, don't speed. They don't care if it says Frisco on the side, CSP, Summit Sheriff, they just see a cop car. And it's everyone's natural habit to be like, okay, obey the traffic laws, you know? And with people living over in the Cove, some down in the metro area, a couple over in Park County, kind of dispersing that flow of extra vehicles throughout the county in every direction. I can tell you this, there isn't a whole lot of police presence on Hoosier Pass. I think everybody kind of knows that. So the couple of us that live over there would give that area that's not very patrolled that throughout the day, the mornings, the evenings, those high traffic times, which potentially prevents accidents and things from happening. It's the same concept we take when we issue a traffic citation. It's not just a penalty, but if I issue a traffic citation for somebody speeding here, maybe that prevented them from running over somebody in Breckenridge because they were still speeding. So it's the same concept if you think about it that way. And just being out there and present more helps prevent a lot of that. The other thing too is if people have their own vehicles, the thought is they're going to take a lot more pride in that vehicle. They're going to make sure that it is clean, it is functional. There's no little things going wrong with it because it is theirs and they own it. Don't own it, but you know, the town owns it, but it's theirs. They're not sharing it, so they're responsible for it. And hopefully the thought process is that they take a lot more pride in that car. Dive in too.
So those other towns that you talked about that have take-home vehicles, do they have a distance limit?
Oh.
Where people have to live?
Some do,
within?
yes, it varies.
Like, for instance, Eagle Police Department. They can take it from, as far west as, east as Vale and as far west as Glen Springs.
Okay. Okay.
But we actually have officers that live in Delaware.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Longmont, right?
No, he lives really,
Oh,
Oh, really?
no, Johnstown.
was 10 miles.
So, yeah. That's more than 90 minutes.
Well, if he drives fast, it's a dry day.
Okay.
There's no cops.
What other questions, Lisa? Sorry.
So, and I heard all the things that you said about just having the coming over Hoosier Pass and having that presence and everything. But you also mentioned that you have that equipment for emergency response in your car.
Yes,
So what if there were just cars available that had those emergency, the equipment for emergency response in those cars? And it wasn't a police car per se to break.
so to put that in perspective. The amount of equipment that I had with me, that's personally owned, my personal equipment at the Safeway incident was well over $20,000 worth of equipment.
Still cheaper than a police car.
Cheaper than a police car. However, now we're outfitting everybody with that, but we're also purchasing a car as well. Looking at this same kind of numbers as a police car to outfit a car with all of that equipment, because that includes ballistic vest, another rifle, another duty, everything.
But I could read off everything that we have to carry. And it's a lot. Probably 50 to 100 pounds worth of gear. I mean, flashlights, spit hoods, anti-bite hoods, grip restraints, handcuffs, flex cuffs, investigatory tools, crime scene tape, chalk, 40mm launchers, Narcan, AED blankets, fire extinguishers. So it goes on and on.
Did you say anti-bite something?
Yeah.
So I think people like, so I think your question is, and I think Sergeant, maybe this is, because I don't want to speak for you, but when you show up, had the Safeway incident not happened that day, when you got here, you would transfer all of that gear from your personal vehicles into whichever.
So if I had
room
to
you were in.
come to the PD, I would have had to get all of my gear out of the PD, load it all into a car. And then respond. And to be honest, it probably would have added a good 30 minutes to my response time. The fact is that being part of the new MERT team, I carry my own personal equipment in my truck to be able to respond, because the other thought process is, what if that didn't happen in Bluestone? What if that happened in Blue River and I'm just over the pass in Hoosier and all my kids here? Now I have to drive all the way here, grab all my stuff. Now my response is an extra hour and a half when I could have been 15 minutes. The fact is outfitting cars that aren't police cars with gear to respond. I feel like it would still cost the town more than just being a police car. Because we'd still have to have marked patrol cars here for normal day-to-day, and then the unmarked cars or whatever, vehicles those were, would still have to be outfitted with all the equipment, and we would have to still purchase more of them in order to get a take-home number. So I feel like that would probably end up costing the town more, and we would lose out on some of the benefits of having marked patrol cars with the presence, the red and blue lights to assist in, those situations where you do come up on an accident at 5 a.m.
I would think that opens us up for liability too, you put all that equipment. in personal vehicles.
I worry about the liability of one of our police cars being down in Lakewood. Something happens. Who is responsible if something happens?
Can you give me an example? Maybe I can answer that.
I mean, if there's a police officer down in Lakewood and that winds up in an unfortunate accident where somebody gets shot and killed. And how I am concerned about the liability of that. And I do realize the whole state is the jurisdiction, right? But it concerns me. It concerns me.
I think just
I think
on a
very
practical
unusual
side of
to
that,
see a police car.
they can't
Sheriff's
communicate
cars
with
is
them.
common. Feel like it's very unusual to see a police car that far away from their hometown.
I don't disagree with that at all, but on a practical sense, their radios don't work in like
So what you're describing would be a word of mouth scenario, or they heard it on the radio.
Or just drove by and saw it.
Well, right, either coming to or from work. Would be how it would,
Let's say a traffic stop. Right, you're talking about people speeding, it's just a traffic stop.
We wouldn't be making traffic stops down there. That, the only time that we would be involved in an incident, say Lakewood. We'll stay. Say Lakewood, somebody lives down there, they're driving through Lakewood to go home. And they see an officer that's already in something, a Lakewood cop, that's say in a shooting. They're already in full gear in their car, ready to do the job. They're going to get involved in that. Now, I can tell you that if they're in their personal car, and most of us, honestly, all of us are armed when we're off duty as well. Okay, it's just the nature of us. They're gonna get involved in that, whether they're in their personal car or not. However, now they're in uniform, they're identified. Responding cops don't see them as, who's this guy in jeans and a t-shirt with a gun in his hand? And so that liability is kind of mitigated there. And they're also protected because they are wearing their armor. They do have all their equipment.
So Lisa, under enforcement actions and policy. Driving a take-home vehicle to and from work outside the jurisdiction of Frisco Police Department. While off duty, an officer shall not initiate enforcement actions except those circumstances where potential threat to life or serious property damage exists. So, if they don't follow this to the letter, their privilege will be taken away.
Other questions, thoughts? Needs?
I had one question, but you kind of answered it in the numbers, and that was, why do these take-home vehicles have to be new? Why can't you just assign what we have back here as take-home vehicles? But I think you kind of answered it in that we only have 6.
Yeah.
And so that was one question. Thanks for answering that.
So, but you guys, I'm sorry.
I did not have it, go ahead.
Most of the guys work 410s basically, right?
Yes,
But what happens to the car for 3 days a week? It's sitting in a driveway because by policy, it's not allowed to be used.
Correct.
yeah,
Okay, I mean,
it's either secured in a garage or secured off-street parking somewhere.
that's a hurdle I'm trying to get over to get to where you want me to be. Because there seems to be a better way of sharing than leaving the $100,000 vehicle idle by definition for days. You know, we can be better stewards of our resources than that.
Also, I'm helping.
They show up on the days that they work today and work tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can see, I mean, that makes sense to me. On the Thursday, when they're not coming back to work until Monday.
Well, they work Wednesday through Saturday and Sunday through Wednesday, so it's overlap is on Wednesday. But I understand your point now.
So that it just, from a stewardship of resources and all the other stewardship issues, I'm challenged with that thought.
Yeah.
The
only thing
and I view it as there's 2 questions, really interrelated, but also separate. One is that concept of one officer, one vehicle. And the other one is taking them home. You know, wherever they're, even if honestly, made them park them here, it sounds like you prefer to have one officer, one vehicle. Even if it wasn't a take-home policy.
Right,
So-
and the times that we have had to have emergency response, like the fire in Silverthorne down on the Front Range, they didn't have those vehicles. Could they have gotten up here quicker? Who knows, with the backup of, I don't know, 15 miles, let's run along the Rumble Strip. Who knows? But you bring up a good point in terms of they're sitting idle. However, if they need to go to court, or if they're needed on an emergency, what are the things that they need besides court?
They would sit idle here though, instead of in the driveway.
Well, no, because then we could manage the fleet better.
we would probably have
Fewer vehicles.
If you have 14 officers, you could probably get by with 9, I'm making numbers up, but you could get by with 9 vehicles. By staggering and
So maybe this might be part of what you're touching on. So with this program too, we were contemplating the cycle of the cars would actually become longer. Because right now the cars are on a 5-year cycle, shelf life, basically. Because the cars get driven and run almost every single day. Because back sides, front sides, they're constantly being driven and run. So the actual time of that vehicle would be extended. And those vehicles would actually last longer than the 5 years.
right, I mean, it's gonna take them longer to get to 100,000 miles or whatever your turnover mileage.
Well, the turnover right now is it has always been just every 5 years that car is on the cycle to get cycled out.
Is there any, sorry.
Yeah.
Do we have anything that, requires every 5 years, or is it just kind of like when that vehicle is deemed unusable?
I think that with how much the vehicles have been driven, the fleet foreman determined that 5-year shelf span is kind of when the vehicles really start to break down and show larger issues than the little mechanical things that they take care of throughout. And that's when they've seen that those cars have started to really show larger problems that then cost the town a lot of money. So that's why they cycled them out.
Like every 6 or 7 or 8 years is acceptable. I mean, I guess is there any standard?
Yeah,
for
there's
replacement?
probably an equivalent to the 5 years to mileage,
Mhm.
because generally speaking, vehicles are used about the same amount in a year. Yes.
Well, they're used, up to 24/7,
Mhm.
and Tom's got a good point. I think that we could extend this out to 8 or 9 years. I don't know what your feeling is on this, but
I was thinking probably 7 to 8 per car would probably be a realistic realm of the life of each car. Just because those 3 days that they're not working, they aren't getting driven like they would be.
yeah,
And I can tell you with the 4 additional that are coming out of the academy, when they're out of training and out, every single car we have right now is pretty much gonna be going 24 hours a day, maybe one shift in there that one car doesn't get driven or something. But they're gonna see an uptick in hours and mileage on those cars with fast minute hurry.
Yeah, you're going to Lakewood, a couple times a week compared to, just having a parking lot idling. Literally, you're gonna have way more miles on the vehicles that are going down, that's for sure.
Yeah, now the thing is I have spoken to our fleet foreman and in his mind, I asked him, what is the biggest detriment to our cars? And he said, it is the hours, not the miles. It is the hours that they run.
So, and this is a good discussion because I don't know where we go. But I just want to share the things I'm wrestling with. One was geographic restrictions. My concern there, and I don't know if this is real or not. A reality of right now, the ideal situation is our officers live in our town.
it'll never happen.
I understand, but that's the idea.
But that's not gonna
The
happen.
secondary ideal would be to live in Summit County.
Yeah, potential.
If all of a sudden we say, you know what, you can live in Lakewood. And we'll give you a car. We're almost, we're encouraging even our current staff to move to Lakewood because there's an economic benefit to doing that.
I think.
So there's on the one hand, on the one hand, you've got the officers that are gonna take a job here because they can live in Lakewood. On the other hand, we've got officers who live here that are gonna move to Lakewood. Because
I would argue that point from the standpoint of everybody wants to live in Frisco. It's the mecca of, this is the best bubble. No, it's a great town to live in. I just don't, with what's going on as I see it, it's like more and more expensive homes slash condos, or whatever you wanna call them.
Oh, I mean,
Don't get me wrong, but if you can afford to live here and you're living here now, or you get into someplace, you're gonna wanna stay. You know why? When you sell it, you're gonna make more money. So I'm thinking along that term, or that way, but
that leads to my second challenge, which is we have lots of staff positions that are difficult to fill. Why should a police officer get a free vehicle when
because
the other difficult to fill positions don't?
this is life and death. I don't wanna be dramatic,
That's
but
I'm interested in your answer, that's
the
why.
reality is the way we train these guys, gals. I mean, when you look at, and I'm gonna drop back real quick to the competitive part. Look at the SO. If I was a young cop or a young person, and I wanted to be a police officer, and I could make $79,000 right off the bat, have my own car and join the SO. That's what I do. Would you?
I'm sorry, what that's up.
Sheriff's office. So we find it-
Obviously, the last person.
And I will say that people, speaking for myself and speaking from knowing most of the cops in this county for a long time, people work up here because they love to be up here. The reasoning that I would say 90% of people that commute and live in the metro area is due to family reasons. Because their spouse has a job down there as well, so they try to split that. They try to move down to that area of Evergreen. Now granted, I'm never gonna be able to afford a house in Frisco that I can afford in Park County. It's never gonna happen. And that's what I want for my family. I want my son to have a yard and be able to go outside and play in our yard and everything. So that's what's important to me, but I love living in the mountains and I love working here. So that's where I choose to live. So I think it's not just the economical, like affordability of things that are gonna draw people in. I think people that truly love to work here, and those are the people that we want here, love the mountains. They love the town. They love being up here. So if they can make it to where they can live up here, maybe it is Fair Play, which isn't that far. I see that as a huge benefit.
If I may, there are officers apparently from Summit County that are going to Lakewood to work because they're getting paid more. So at what point, and we just raised pay, let's raise it again. Like at what point do we have to say, well, the sheriff's office just raised 20% across the board. And so we have to meet that. We have to provide vehicles. Yes, we have to provide police officers with more than any other difficult job to fill, because that is a difficult job. Well beyond putting anybody in this building, anybody in our seats or anything like that. And that's where I think no matter what, we have to give them more than anybody. They're not on the tubing hill. You know, they're out there keeping us safe. It's really the bottom line. So I'm fully behind the cars, always have been at this point. I'm also behind raising the pay rate, big scale, if that's what needs to happen in order to retain. Because we're talking about retaining police officers and we're losing them to other entities in the county.
After that will be the next budget cycle, so we'll get back
I
to
was
that.
gonna ask if you're raising money.
No, we'll do
Raising-
the offset.
Okay.
Tom, do you know roughly off the top of your head, what's our financial investment as a town into a new recruit, like before we have an academy now? What's it cost for us to put them into the academy and then the cost where they're driving solo and a sworn officer for them?
Help me out on this, Tim, but $3,300 for the academy, about $17,000 to $20,000 for all equipment. And the patrol training officers train them for 16 weeks at $200 a week. So that's just kind of off the top.
The salary that we're paying them throughout the academy and the PTO, because they're not
Yeah.
functional until they're out of PTO. And
And
then,
that, and let me explain that, patrol training officer training program is.
You're not hitting them off.
No,
No, no, no.
no.
Welcome to the job. You made it, yeah.
What am I doing?
but through the academy is 4 months. And so we're paying them their salary through that. Now they're in training for another 4 months. We're paying them through that and they're, you know, you think about it as a child, they're toddlers. You know, they can't go and do with be on their own or anything. So now we're factoring in like a training officer salary that they're focusing on them so much. And even when they get out of training, they're still just learning.
And they're not, and just to interject, they're not put on the night shift. They're put on days, flex or swing, so that appears to help them.
Yeah.
We're always helping them, and it's my opinion that, you're really not a good police officer, you have at least 5 years. You're not, you don't get all the ins and outs, and it's a, you know, it's a sad fact, but it's true, and, you know, when we're losing 2.4,
2.49 average.
yeah. I
So
mean,
we're
that,
looking at a $15,000 a year investment. For the 2.5 years.
2.5 years ago.
I'm just trying, well, I've got a smart. Thank you. But I think, because I think Andy's question is a good one, right? And I hadn't thought about the idle time of the car. And it's an expensive resource for 3 days. But, and I think that's a hard fixed cost. We can prove that it sits there for 3 days, but then if, more subjectively speaking, this is a successful recruitment tool. And we get that number from 2.5 up to 4. Is there value to us to have a car sitting for 3 days where we're not continuously training officers? And that pool of, you know, having sergeants having to do field training officers for their 4 months out of academy versus go 2 or 3 years without having to bring in a new officer and train them. Is the value, even though it's not tangible, worth that for a car sitting for 3 days? And I don't think that's just a personal question and answer for each and every one of us. And but that's where I'm kind of trying to. I hadn't thought about the downtime, but I think, and I'm where Andy is, and I think I've always been. I think this is important. I'd be up for if council wants to discuss some geographic limits of how far
And, you know,
we might take this, but.
in terms of that, there are some agencies, like there's a guy in Eagle that lives in Carbondale. And he can't go east of Glenwood Springs, and that's what, 12 miles from Glenwood to Carbondale. He leaves it at the Carbondale Police Department. Drives his vehicle home 12 miles. And he drives back 12 miles and drives it from Carbondale or from Glenwood Springs back to Eagle. So there are, in fact, one of our officers didn't want to drive the car home. He left it at Lakewood PD. That's what Lakewood, yeah.
One more question just to help me, because normally we live in a world, fortunately, in this wonderful town that we're in that has lots of tourists who spend lots of money. We don't usually have to make or decisions. And I know this is an or decision, meaning we threw capital dollars into this line in the budget, knowing that we were going to have this conversation, but this conversation should be premised on if we were to not spend all this money, it's going somewhere else. What's that somewhere else? I mean,
Salaries.
Well, I mean, that's a possibility, but generally speaking, we have general fund dollars that more than what we expend typically or budget to expend a typical year, it goes into our capital plan. So the priorities that would come up on our unfunded list within capital right now would be walkability improvements that are in our plans, our neighborhood parks, Granite Street, you know, those types of things that we haven't fully funded within our capital plan at this point.
So we could pull it away from the police department and put it somewhere else if it was not used.
That's not really the choice that's being made, but it's an illustration.
Yeah, and I don't know how to tactfully say this, but it's no big deal, but like So we got 4 guys in the academy. We're still too short. So we always talk about, because we're geniuses when it comes to money. We're
Well, you would please. Yeah, very much so.
and we read, you know, Tom Swift books, but the reality is we've saved a boatload of money for the town in terms of salary. But I know that that's taken in capital and what else, but it's like, there's been a lot of, I've had this department filled one time in 20 years. And that lasted 6 months. Hallelujah. But we just like to get more, we'd like to get closer to that and keep our guys, because we've got some core officers, Tim, Luke, 5 and 7 years. But we'd like to keep a core of officers, because I tell you, when everybody's on the same page, it just works beautifully.
If we, and I'm just pulling it apart, but a couple of things together. We gave everybody a $20,000 raise. If every officer, because the money we're talking about for cars is real money, divided by 14 is still real money.
So now,
If we threw this back to you guys and said, all right, you have, what do we have, 500,000 for this project, this proposal?
4.8.
428, okay. If we gave you the 428 and said, build the department, is this how you would spend it?
Well, we actually want to go on a safari trip to Africa, but. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting.
if you think about the, you know, the fact that if we gave everybody a $20,000 raise right now across the board, you would just be getting them on par with the sheriff's office new salary. And that agency also has take-home cars. So there's still a benefit to them of, well, why don't I go work there?
Right, and so is this the best way we should be spending these dollars? Purposes, if the true crux of this issue is recruitment, is this the best way to spend these dollars?
I think at this point, this is the best step we can take moving forward for recruitment and retainment.
You know, it's funny too,
And we need $20,000 per man plus. You know, like it's not either or, it's both.
Yeah.
In order to even compete. That's
The other thing to think about is, so the sheriff's office implemented that raise 3 weeks ago. And across the board, they implemented that raise.
right after we did ours.
And Silverthorne is already planning on moving their officers to a competitive wage, just like that. The sheriff's office just beat them to it. I believe, from my understanding, Silverthorne's plan is that January 1st, their new salaries are gonna go in, and it is gonna be very comparable to the new sheriff's office salaries. So now we have 2 agencies in the county that are easily $20,000 at each step above our officers. And I guarantee you, Dillon and Breckenridge will be following that salary raise as well.
They don't have vehicles.
They don't. Dillon is working on take home proposal as well. I know that for a fact.
I think, Andy, one of the things the retention's a huge portion. But I think there's the pre-shift, post-shift changeover. It's fairly extensive when I mean, it's not like when you come on, you just take your duffel bag and put it in the car, ask the officer who just got off shift if it's, you know, running okay. I mean, it's a true changeover of everything because it is so personal. I don't know how long that takes on average, but I think there's that. I mean, the amount of idle time where they're not ready to be able to call on either end of each shift, right, because of that.
They're working 10, policing 9.
Yeah, probably, yeah, so, and that's something I think for me, it also takes into account of just that in and out versus showing up truly ready to work and on. Yeah, please, Jesse.
I've gone around in circles on it, 'cause I'm not sure exactly how I feel, but thank you for laying it out, and the discussion here today has been really enlightening. I think just from you know, if we were to move forward with this, and I'm leaning towards it, but in looking at the policy, I think the biggest question, first of all, kind of question I have, but also just a place where I think we could kind of clean up the policy is still around that off-duty piece and like being more clear about when you're off duty, but what I'm hearing is you're never off duty as an officer, so there's kind of this. There's just this gray area that makes, I think, some of us uncomfortable about like how you're responding. Or maybe not even responding to something, you're just an off-duty officer that has resources at their disposal, all these other things that could easily go sideways in a community, any community, but specifically one that's not ours, right? And so I just think I would like to see us spend a little bit more time on the policy and a little bit more on the repercussions about if you don't follow the policy, what that means. And really kind of defining and calling out that off-duty piece. One example is just, it's talking about off-duty and dress attire, for example. And my understanding is that if you're off-duty, you shouldn't be driving a car. So why is there an off-duty? When would you be off-duty and driving the car when you would be in anything other than your uniform traveling to and from work?
You wouldn't.
So just exactly, but that's any policy and it reads that would be allowed.
Right.
So I think there's some things in the policy that we could tighten up that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable, but I appreciate what you've laid out here and I recognize that the job is a very specific and very important job to our community. And that because of that, it shouldn't be compared to the rental equipment attendant at the marina, for example. So we could work on the policy language. I think I could get across the finish line.
Just, for me, it's about recruitment and retention, right? And I was surprised to learn after visiting yesterday that a majority of our officers either live in the county or in adjoining county. Most of our officers are not in the metro area. So there's a component there, right? That was super surprising to me. The other thing I talked about is, well, what if we just said, you put a geographical boundary on it? It was a good point of, well, if you go to Park County, you may drive an hour and a half to get to the other side of it or wherever that is. So what are we achieving by doing that? And I don't know, right? I've seen where cars get left at different places because there's that limitation on it, but I don't know that we gain much with it, especially if we have a good policy. The county as a whole, I'd say the first responder world is still, I want to say 10 years, but behind salaries in the Front Range. The fire districts are just getting there, like next year, like barely getting there. And hearing what's going on in the county and the law enforcement community, everyone's growing up, right? When the example of that the fact that the sheriffs made that move, everyone's going to follow, and you're going to have to. So if we can, I think this is one component of it. I do think there needs to be salary. I've said this for the last several years, is I want Frisco to be the premier place for law enforcement in the county to work. And one, because it's a great place to be because of our community, but two, because they have great salary benefits and we need to work on it. So at the end of the day, we've already budgeted these dollars, and this is one tool to get us a good police force in place. And having gone back and forth with Tom over the years, never being, the detective, while I've been here, has never been filled. And that's been 8 years, so it's never had been fully staffed. So if this is a tool to get us there, I'm in. I know there's some details to work out, but I think we can get there. Right now, we're talking about 4 cars and then what it looks like in 25. And to Andy, I don't have a great answer to, is this the best place to put the dollars? I think it's a place to put the dollars to achieve our goal. If our goal is to have a fully staffed, capable, and desirable police department to work in.
Go ahead, please.
No, you.
And I'm sorry, the car is their office. So there's going to be some pride and ownership in taking care of your vehicle, and it's not apples to apples.
Or they're really messy and they're just gonna make it messy because nobody else is going in.
And that's his job, is to police that.
That falls on me.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, that makes that portion of my job way easier, because it's not, well, so-and-so drove the car. No, that's your car.
Right.
So go fix it.
So. I'm all in favor of the raises that we're not talking about tonight. I would feel more comfortable with the car situation if it had the distance limit on it. My understanding and very limited in my knowledge, so I could be wrong. By understanding the towns that I am aware that have this, they have those limitations and how far the cars can go. I'm a little confused, and maybe it's just in case, I don't know. They don't keep their car clean or something like that, but there's in the policy that it's at the chief's discretion, yours, future chiefs, whatever's discretion.
Sure.
So if there's a car for everybody, is that just for, like, if it's abused, if it's, what would be the reasons for them not taking?
Well, so if they abuse the vehicle,
No, I'm asking in the policy, you have it in there that you
Yeah.
have the chief's discretion.
right,
So I'm just like, if we're getting a car for everybody, why isn't everybody taking a car home? Be up to the chief's discretion.
What would be a reason why you would say, you can't take that home?
Yeah,
If they were to violate part of the policy,
okay.
that would be something
Are
that,
there GPS in the?
yes. There's 3 GPS trackable units within each car. The MDC, the radio, and the car camera system,
It's the MDC.
the computer that's in the car.
You guys are right along.
Well,
I am gonna, I'm gonna get it like more.
Because you all carry cell phones.
Yeah.
I don't, do they want to black boxes? Just as a, I kept an old,
The chief carries it?
yeah.
Did you have a question?
Well, want to just, do the cars have black boxes?
Black boxes as far as
Crash monitor.
We know how fast you're going, if there's a crash, we can go back and find out how fast you were going.
there is. That can be tracked through the MDC. Yes.
In my view, one is, I question if every officer wants this. The love of Summit County is we have parking challenges, and if you gave me an extra car, I don't have any place to put it. So I'd probably say, no, I'd really rather leave it here because I don't get to use it on the weekend, so all you're doing is stealing one of the few parking spaces I have at my house. So.
But they'd be leaving their car here.
No, but when they go home, if they have a car that they have to store at their house for 3 days a week, and they only have 2 parking spaces at their house, and their wife has a car, they have a car, and now we're throwing a 3rd car into their.
Right, but their car
Condo.
would be here.
No, they drive to work every day in their car and they take it home every
Yeah,
day.
the wife brought them here, they got- they got-
Think you got the right motion?
And then 7 years later, when we're putting a 3rd car at the person's
Okay.
house, sometimes they're not gonna go up. Because,
Well, like I said, the guy that.
so. It really is just that, let's give it a little more massaging. And make it a part of an incentive. If you don't want the police car, if you don't want a take-home vehicle, are you creating an economic benefit for the town? That we can then compensate you for not forcing us to buy another $100,000 car? Is there a way, just giving it some thought? Because I'm not convinced that every officer is gonna think this is a good thing
Well, so
because of their parking situation at their homes.
we have talked about this, and we had the partial plan in place and everything, where they can take it during their work week. I will tell you, everyone here at Frisco is very much so on board for this.
And storing it at their house for the 3.
Absolutely.
But you never know, in
But you know what?
24 years.
And you're gonna get 4 new officers in another couple of weeks.
And I will tell you, those 4, are very,
I'm more on, this is a package that should not be designed for your current force. This should be a package that is designed for the best utilization of the force.
But I think,
And if this is something, I'm just throwing it out there, if it's discussed and determined to be, everybody wants one, Andy, we looked into it, it's not. But I know the parking challenges of Summit County, and I believe everybody has room for an extra vehicle for the storage days. With geography limits, I'm good, meaning I think there should be restrictions, whether it's Summit County, Summit and neighboring counties. We would need to massage that. We need the police officers, we need them well compensated. Just want to be best stewards of our town's dollars. And making sure that this is the best way to do it.
Jesse, I'd like to hear your thought, idea,
On the utilization of vehicles?
no, on how you would like to move forward with a rehash of the policy. Do you want, were you thinking you're gonna sit down committee of two, go through it? Do you want, are you thinking
Oh, I
another
didn't
work
get
session to
that
go
far.
through? Cause it sounds like we're getting close, but I think potentially the geographic conversation sounds like there's a little bit of support, and maybe a little look at this.
I didn't have a suggestion. I'm happy to kind of redline or just highlight places where I'm used and hand that off to some people to brainstorm. But I don't have a
And then maybe have the chief do that. I guess quick, I'm in favor, I think Rick, you're in
I'm in
favor,
favor, but I think getting into his policy is too much in the weeds for this body.
yeah. Andy's in favor, I know.
I'm in favor, but I'm not in favor of geographic, boundaries.
Yeah.
Because of the location of some potential
Where is you?
recruits.
Yeah, I think the one thing that trips me up with the geographical boundary thing is, you know, maybe you get a really great applicant that lives in some, I don't know, it's just gonna be hard to manage those boundaries. I mean, it could be a distance or 30 miles or whatever. I'm all for it. I'm for the raise as well. I went.
Well, for you, but I think that's a whole different budget thing.
No, it's
Not being here tonight and.
Yeah. I'm supportive of trying to sustain a great police force in our community. It's meaningful. My daughter was at the outlet store, or their day school got relocated over to the outlets temporarily, or who knows, probably. That was when the carjacking, and it was pretty frightening trying to get your kid or getting all these texts from your kid, your little girl, like in this place, you know, and it just made it really. Yeah, if this is all it takes, not that this is all it takes, but I'm willing to help push a safe community where I don't. Yeah, that was a pretty scary thing for me. And so, you know, the Silverthorne Police Department, wherever it is, like, man, I'm grateful for how that was handled. I don't even know the details, but my kid, I don't know, just when you're on the other side of that, getting texts from inside somewhere, it's pretty dang. And, you know, God forbid we didn't have enough people in our community to respond. I guess we're make sure we have everybody we need to have, and I trust Chief to know how many that is.
I know, Andrew, it sounds like you're not decided, there's not maybe 100, do we want to revisit this on another work section? With just kind of looking at rehashing some of the, asking the chief some of the questions we might individually have, and throw it on consent agenda. Once we have time to give chief some questions on some of these policies to clean it up. Back to it.
I am supportive, perhaps counter to what Rick just said, by getting a little bit in the weeds with the policy, so I'm there.
Okay.
With some just some high level questions about like clarity.
So my read of the room is that where we were going with this conversation. Was so,
Yeah.
it sounds like we can order. We need to work on the policy, and we won't achieve full fleet. Where will we get these vehicles immediately, so we have some time to deal with the policy side?
Consensus on that. We were in the Explorers or
Lamborghini.
someone was on Main Street, yes, we
I know.
got big tires. How do you think away? Do we, and that's a totally random question, but I mean, there are the two sides difference, I'm just wondering.
So the Explorers are the kind of our base model, what we've always kind of gone with. I have been exploring some options that might be able to provide us with getting our cars a little bit sooner than like 11 months from now. So I've been doing some research and looking into that. The Dodge Durango Interceptor version might be a viable option. They're all relatively priced similarly. So we're just trying to fine detail that, but this was based off of
There's
the
really
Explorer.
only 3 options out there, right?
Well, there's actually quite a few now. There's,
Well, I'm talking state bid.
Right.
yeah, because there's the Chevys, there's the Fords, which you can get the Explorers or the Expeditions.
Okay.
The Dodges, and now they're doing the like F-150.
Is the Dodge on state bid now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So there are quite a few options and everything, for a patrol car, but for the most part, the Explorers have always kind of been our go-to.
And I know I've been a huge advocate for the hybrid Ford Interceptor, but it seems like they sit in the shop far more than they sit in somebody's driveway, so until that gets worked out, I'm backing out.
Yeah,
Heard that as well, but-
Dylan was having some problems.
Dylan, Breckenridge, yeah.
There's the dealers are starting to show electric versions, but we're way out in years before they're gonna be available readily to themselves.
Any other questions? I'm here. Well done. No?
I need a ride along.
Anytime. Say the word.
Like, that's better than everything.
Right?
Just call us.
Yeah, Wednesdays are usually fun because it's overlap day, so there's a lot of us here, so you get to pick our brains and everything.
Okay.
Fridays and Wednesdays, that's.
Weekends are usually busier, so if you wanna see stuff, Friday, Saturday.
It'll be 10-hour shifts.
Yeah.
You go at night, like for as long as you can go.
Can you just say something?
Test. Good. All right. Are we recording? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Frisco Town Council. Can I have the roll call, please?
Yep.
Early, here. Mortensen.
Here.
Incan.
Here.
Here.
Blanco.
Here. Held.
Here. Hey, we're all here.
This evening is public comment. Anyone wishing to do so now. Please be topic specific for anything that is not on this evening's agenda. Limit your comments no longer than 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. If you're joining online, I will raise your hand. I will call on you and I will see Tom online. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My name's Tom Castrino. I live here in
Tom, can you give us
Frisco.
1 second? We're having some audio problems. We can barely hear you.
My speakers are up.
Okay, try again, Tom. Go ahead.
Try again. My name's Tom Castrino. I live in Frisco. Can you hear me okay?
He needs to lean into his mic or turn his mic
We
up.
can barely hear you, Tom. Maybe get right up personal with your microphone there.
Okay, I'm right up in it. How's that? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we'll be quiet in chambers. We'll be able to hear you. And I'll try to summarize.
All right, good enough. I thank you all for the public comment. And I know you're working on the Lake Hill project. As a customer of Frisco Water and Sanitation, I just want to say that I don't want to see my rates go up if there's capital improvement and expansion required to accommodate Lake Hill. I want that to be totally self-sufficient from the applicant and those units that tap into our system. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was on the Frisco Peninsula. The trail network is fantastic. Thank you so much for building all that. It seems like we could use a little bit of rider education because some of those downhill trails are getting pretty chewed up. I see people skidding and spinning their tires and not riding them in a sustainable way. So I'd like to encourage you to think about some sort of rider education. And also, we're going to have a big parking problem up there as that place becomes more and more popular. So whether that looks like shuttling or, you know, I've been saying about the Frisco Flyer for a long time, but whatever that might look like, don't let that take you by surprise. And I think that's probably about my 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yep, we heard you reference the earlier work session topic of Lake Hill and water with the sanitation district, and then also new trail network and that. So we appreciate those comments. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? Bill, please come on up to the lectern.
Oops, sorry. Bill Kopp, 103 Miners Creek Road, concerned citizen, and I've got two main topics. First one we can deal with pretty quickly. I've looked at some of the numbers on the parking down at the marina. If the town's rationale is to just get turnover, I think it's actually being charged too often. You could probably get away with doing something like weekends from Memorial Day through Labor Day and just weekdays in July. But you know, who knows, maybe First Interstate will say, well, you're not worth it to us anymore and not want to do it. But just by numbers, it looks like the weekdays don't get used that much in May, June, and August and September. Yeah. And other topic, the CDOT held an open house. Some of our staff was here, some of the council people. It was very eye-opening. Hello, folks. Urbanization of Frisco. There we are. And I think with we need an improved intersection with the volumes of traffic we get and we will get. And they are talking about doing it in 2 phases, just the intersection and then doing Lusher Court and the Dam Road and all of that. And I think you need to hold their feet to the fire to say, no, don't do it in 2 phases, do it all at once. Also, when all of that comes, we're gonna see a lot more impact on 10 Mile Road and Meadow Creek roads. I sent a letter off to the CDOT guy and I was saying, hey, we need the feds and the state and everybody involved to figure out where we put the trucks when the roads close down. And I think they're going to be along Meadow Creek, and I don't want to see us lose our industrial crafts section in town too. So the increased traffic along 10 Mile Road, 10 Mile Drive, whatever, yeah, is a big concern to mine too. And folks need to deal with it, see it coming. And thanks.
Yeah, we do have parking on future agendas, and stay tuned tonight for your other topic point on CDOT, because it's agenda item number 1, so in a roundabout way. No pun intended. No pun intended, I'm sorry. I'm done with my consults. Any other public comments this evening before I get kicked out of here? Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment and on to council comments.
I got a few. It's been a long time since I've been here.
I know, we missed you.
That's why my first one is it's good to be back. I was away for good reasons, but I missed these. We have a VIP in the house, and I think she should be acknowledged as the newest member of the Summit County School Board. Woohoo! Congratulations. There was a friend and neighbor brought a proposal to me for it's a concept that Breck has taken on, dark sky. And I just want to bring it up as something I think we should agendize for the purpose only at this stage, not of passing or doing anything, but of listening. And probably the next step is finding out what it would take to bring that topic along. And then decide, is it something that we should pursue? But, you know, I think we all value the dark sky. Are there steps we can do to make it better? So at this point, I'm asking that we take this project to the next step, which is getting ourselves educated, and then decide if we want to make more steps. And then the other, when I read through the staff reports, I just want to acknowledge how much I really do like seeing the huge turnout for local events. We had the historic, we had the mystery at the museum, we had the science with Astro Mark, we had the community with Halloween. And I read these with kind of a thrill of, these are the quality of life enhancements that make Frisco a great place to live. Our priority should always be on the quality of life for all our residents, not recruiting more visitors. The visitors will come because this is a great place to live. So great job in creating some wonderful local events, which just make us an even better place that people will want to visit. So, thanks for having me back.
Thank you. And Rick and Tom will work on looking at future agendas and or touching them for dark sky educational.
Wanted to say congratulations on the grant we received for the solar retrofits on our streetlights. Exciting to see that.
A lot, 780
or something, 760.
95.
Yeah. Thank you, Dole.
Yep. And thanks staff for always applying for grants whenever they're there. Any other comments? Staff updates.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Tomorrow, the town talk that myself and staff will be having at the Highside Brewery between 5 and 6:30. Council is welcome to attend. However, only 2 of you can be there at the same time. So I'll let you, if you have interest, let Kyle know and we'll regulate how that works. And then coming up on your future calendars, and it sounds like Kyle spoke to you individually about it already. CAST is in Mount Crested Butte, 24th through the 26th. Oh, well, really the meeting is the 25th and 26th of January. So stay close with Kyle on getting set up if you want to go. That's all I've got today.
Next up this evening is the consent agenda. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda. Move to approve the consent agenda by Mayor Pro Tem Incan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Skripczak. Adrian, any discussion on the motion? Call a question, please.
Burley,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Skripczak, Adrian,
Yes.
Palenko.
Yeah.
Held.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
This is next up this evening, agenda item number 1. This is first reading ordinance 23-20. An ordinance amending chapter 180 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Frisco concerning the development of land by adoption of an appendix A thereto concerning guidelines and regulations for activities of state interest. Public hearing, turn over to staff.
I think it's me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm tempted to ask you if you're getting bored with this yet, because this is now the 4th discussion that we have had to one extent or another on the adoption of 1041 regulations, but really only the second one that has resulted in any action at all. And this is the first of 2 readings of an ordinance that will actually adopt the 1041 regulations. Just by way of background, I think everybody's pretty well aware of, and that is laid out in the staff memo. 1041 regulations are reference to a state statutory authorization under which municipalities and counties can adopt regulations for what the statute calls activities of state interest. And the statute gives a laundry list of those activities of state interest. There was an initial workshop of the council earlier this year at which we discussed 1041 regulations from the 5,000 foot level. You know, what is the authority? What is the scope of that authority? We then had another workshop in which the council narrowed the scope, gave me direction as to which of the potential areas of and activities of state interest that were permitted for regulation under state statute that we actually wanted to regulate. And so from that discussion then, and in accordance with statutory requirements, I prepared a proposed set of designations of activities of state interest and attendant regulations, essentially a permitting scheme, for lack of a better word, a detailed set of application and decisional criteria for the following 4 areas. The first is site selection and construction of major new domestic sewage treatment systems and major extensions of existing domestic sewage treatment systems. By way of example, it would apply to the sanitation district's expansion of its plant for purposes of Lake Hill. I think we've had that discussion, as well as any other such expansions that met the terms of the new regulations. The second area designation of activity of state interest is the site selection and construction of major facilities of a public utility. I think most of the discussion, while it would apply to any public utilities, most of the discussion has been centered on the potential for future gas line construction through the town. This would give the town the ability to regulate that. The third topical area is the site selection of arterial highways and interchanges and collector highways. CDOT is engaged in a project right now that would have come under these regulations had they been in place quite a while back when this whole thing was started. I think that was the reference just made. And then finally, the 4th area is the site selection of rapid or mass transit facilities. As I explained at the last council meeting, when you had this draft set of regulations in front of you, the regulations break themselves into essentially 5 primary sections. The 4 sections that designate these different activities of state interest, and then one global overreaching section that applies to all applications and the decisional processes, et cetera, et cetera. Both the overreaching application regulations and the individual regulations that address particular activities have decisional criteria, right? So there's some that apply to everything, and then there's additional ones that only apply substantively to these areas. On process, the town council is the ultimate permit authority, but under the regulations that are being proposed for adoption, planning commission would hold the initial public hearings and make recommendations to council for final decision making after a public hearing. That
that is the high points of the regulations. This will require a second reading. I'm happy to answer any questions on the regulations itself or or more generally, the processes.
That, any questions for that?
Process question. Staff recommendation was recommend town council consider the comments, if any, at the scheduled public hearing. And consider approving. How does this?
We are in it right now. He just
This is the
opened it.
public hearing?
This is the public.
Yep.
hearing.
Perfect.
And we have, just so everyone is aware, our town clerk Stacy has noticed this public hearing in accordance with the special statutory requirements that apply to this public hearing and its notice, as opposed to our general ordinances and the like. So the special notice provisions have been complied with, and I don't understand why the room is not filled with
I was gonna say, have we heard?
participants.
Have we heard from anybody?
Not everyone.
There would be-
No.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any other factor to that.
But happy we did it when it happened.
Yep. Excellent. If there's no questions at this time, I'll open up for public comment. If there's public comment, may do so now. See online, none in chambers, I'll close public comment, back to council discussion.
I think if we had passed this, we would have had better, more control over the project that's happening in front of my house at the moment. And, yeah, I'm in favor.
Oh.
You do it?
No, can I?
Yeah.
Completion of 7 years of me begging Thad to bring this.
Substantive request I ever remember really having made is, can we get some 1041 regulations in here? And we talked about it, but it didn't happen. And it's not my fault.
Here we are.
It's about to.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve agenda item number 1, which is first reading ordinance 23-20. I do. Okay.
I read the whole thing.
Thank you, sorry.
Yep. It's been moved to approve on first reading by Councilmember Burley. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Held. Any discussion? Question?
Mortensen.
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Skrupczak, Adrian.
Yes.
Plinko. Yes. Held.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
And Burley. Yes.
Congratulations, Jesse. Almost there.
Hunter got his bottle bill, you got your 1041.
Still no dog park, but we'll get there. Next up this evening is agenda item number 2. This is a planning commissioner vacancy appointment. I'll for public hearing, turn over to staff. And who's you taking this one? Sorry, we take your time, walk slowly. We're in no hurry. It's all right.
I forgot it was already up.
That one went faster than the title would have implied. So, yep.
Good evening. I won't give you a big update. You had the staff report. I will give you one update to the staff report is that well, first of all, thank you to Lisa and Andy Held, who interviewed 7 candidates last week. It took a large chunk of their day, so we obviously really appreciate their time into it. They came up with 2 finalists, as were noted in your application or in your staff report packet. And that was Candace Day and Mark Sabatini. As about 4:00 PM today, Mark Sabatini withdrew his request to be on the planning commission. So you have 1 finalist now to discuss, or if you want to open it up, you did receive all of the applications for the other candidates. So you want to talk about any of them. So I think Lisa and Andy were prepared to give you some information.
Information.
One, I'd say thank you. Having done those interviews, I really appreciate it. I know it's a lot, but thank you for doing that.
Interesting.
And I think at this point, with only one of your finalists, I don't need any additional information. I trust you all doing the process, but anyone else need more?
Expound if you'd like.
Thank you guys
Yeah.
for doing that.
So,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I would, and I don't know that anybody that has applied is listening, but maybe they will. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities for them to participate in town, whether government or committees or whatever coming up, and they should they should reach out and, get involved in another way. Because they
Yeah.
were all very interesting people.
Right, consider running for a position or don't hesitate to apply for another potential board.
Yep.
Because a lot of people were, smart, sharp individuals, wanted to be involved in the community. Yeah, but as far as planning commission is concerned, I think with this one candidate, I think by far, she would be the right choice.
Yep.
I'll open up for public comment. Anyone wish to make public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none online, none in chambers, I'll close public comment. I do believe the motion would have to have, is it Candace D? Day, thank you. I apologize. Candace Day's name in the.
Yeah, you wanna do that?
You didn't read the whole thing, right? Or
I
did
can if you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass. Is that right? Appoint. Candace Day as planning commissioner to fill the vacancy.
Works for me.
Is that
Move
enough?
to appoint Candace Gay to our vacancy on the planning commission by Councilmember Malenko. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Held. Any discussion of the question?
Again.
Yes.
Yes.
Blanco.
Yes.
Held.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Morton.
Yes. Well, for those who applied, and Candace, looking forward to having you join our planning commission.
Hopefully she'll be there this Thursday night.
Next up this evening is agenda item number 3. This is first reading ordinance 23-26, an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the town of Frisco, Colorado concerning the compensation of the mayor, council members, and planning commission members by amending sections 10-6 concerning council salaries, section 41-3 concerning qualifications of planning commissioners, and section 41-5 concerning planning commission staff and finances. I'll open up the public hearing. Turn over to staff. And
I
back
think
to that.
it's me again. In Leslie's absence, she is at the Government Finance Officers Association Conference. I'm going to start this with an apology, actually. And my apology is for the fact that this proposed ordinance is in error with respect to its numbers. Leslie and I miscommunicated and misunderstood each other, and it has resulted in the error that I'm about to describe to you. And they are just the numbers errors. But if you look at and then we'll get back into the staff memo and you can talk about the policy, but I want to explain. If you read this ordinance, it shouldn't have made sense to you. Under section 1, section 10-6 of the code, council salaries is correct as shown with its line strike, except that line strike should continue to include the $ and the $1,050 per month. And immediately following that line strike, there should be inserted the dollar amount of $1,250 a month with a double underline. So that this section is striking out the $1,050 a month is the existing mayor salary, right? This is intended to be the mayor salary going forward. So it moves from $1,050 to $1,250. Same issue with different numbers under part B. The line strike should continue through the $ and the $600. And immediately following that should be double underlined the number $750. Having made those two changes, then we go down into subpart B, midway through the paragraph. It says the mayor serving on the effective date of ordinance 2326, that's this ordinance, it's effective 5 days after publication, after second reading. The mayor serving an effective date of this ordinance shall receive a salary of, it says $1,250, it should say $1,050. Right, the limitation of our charter and the state constitution is that public officials cannot raise or lower their salaries or compensation cannot be raised or diminished during the term of office of the person voting on that. The idea is you don't use compensation to either reward or punish public officials because you don't like the politics or what they did, right? So that's the limitation. That means that anybody currently in office voting on this will continue to get the same salary they do now, regardless of the fact that the newly electeds in April of 24 will come on at the new salary. Similarly, anyone who is currently serving a term that will end, and if you happen to be reelected in 2024, now you get the new salary, right? Because it's not the same term. You are not voting on your own salary. you're voting on what could potentially be your salary one day, but isn't until then. So for that reason, this subsection D was expressing the fact that those here now continue to get what they get now. Right, and similarly, the next part of that sentence, all other members of council serving in the effective date of said ordinance shall receive a salary of, again, $750 per month, should go back to the $600 per month. This is keeping currently electeds from raising their own salaries. So there's gonna be I think everyone has understood from the beginning, there's gonna be a bifurcation as between council salaries for those who are elected in 24 until the terms of 26 start. So with that, again, my apologies for the error in the numbers. It will come back next time with the change in these numbers as I've described. With that, I'd like to turn briefly to the staff memo, because my understanding from Leslie is that the policy consideration, or one of the policy goals, was to put council compensation and planning commission compensation somewhere between that of Dillon and Breckenridge. I am told that Dillon just changed theirs so that we will, even with this change, we would no longer be between the two. I think we're bringing up the rear again. I don't know if that matters to anybody or not. But I did want to make you aware of it because I promised Leslie that I would. She said they based, part of their consideration was trying to put themselves in between the neighboring jurisdictions, and that's not quite going to be the case now, though I don't have the exact numbers. Do you know? Okay. So I've done my duty. I promised her I would tell you that policy goal might be thwarted by actions outside of our control. With that, I'm happy to answer questions. And my recommendation is that you do go ahead and approve this on first reading. I will bring the numbers changes back for the second reading.
Thanks for the apologies and corrections on staff.
It actually matches Dylan's for council, and the mayor's is 1,400.
Okay.
That. Open up for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment on this agenda item? Go for it, Phil. Come on up.
I just happen to be here, so I can. I think the intention of it is good because basically you guys have two jobs. They can go and really pay everything, rent and so on, and this part-time wages too. And I know that if to do it right, it's a minimum of 20 hours a week, if not another full part-time job. So yeah, get more people interested in it and don't pay them a full job's wages, but compensate them.
Any additional public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to council discussion.
Yeah, if I may, I think I pretty much brought this forward. And it's because I feel this is an actual equity issue. I feel that young people, especially around here, choose not to run for council because they can't afford it. And so you should be compensated for your time. In any case, you can't expect anybody to do something, let alone this amount of work, for next to nothing out of the passion for doing it. The passion only lasts, in my experience, about a year. For anyone. This does require time and effort, and you should be compensated for your time. So with that, I still have 2 years on my term. I will be one of those sitting council members that will not make as much as the people the people who will be incoming. And I don't have a problem with that because this is important for future people to get involved. That's where I'm coming from.
Thanks, Andy. That I just had a random question that came to mind. What if there was an appointment to a seat of an existing council member?
The ordinance provides that they get the new salary.
Thank you. Yep. Great. And Andy, I agree completely with your thoughts and everything you said. So thank you.
Do it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2326 with the changes the attorney read into the record.
Move to approve by Councilmember Burley. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Go. Any discussion on the motion? Call the question, please.
Check, Adrian?
Yes.
Micah?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Burley?
Yes.
Mortensen?
Yes.
Yes.
Passes on first reading. Thank you. Next up, agenda item number 4. This is the PFAS Class Action Settlement Agreement Advisement. Public hearing. It is Thad's night.
Indeed, thank you. And so long as no one asks me what PFAS stands for, I will be in good shape.
Thank you, Jeff.
Everyone knows that that's a forever chemical.
Wait, what was the P? No.
Water repellent, essentially plastics that do not degrade naturally in what scientists consider normal time periods and can be found everywhere from your dental floss to the bloodstreams of polar bears. Right? I mean, it is ubiquitous. There has now been a proposed settlement of the first of the class actions intended to resolve the PFAS claims of municipalities in connection with PFAS and municipal water systems. Actually, the first two, the first one with 3M and the second one with DuPont. There are other companies out there. I'm aware that there is other litigation ongoing. Whether and when a class settlement will ultimately be reached with those other manufacturers, I can't tell you, but I'll be back when we do. Because the issue with this, if you think about it, is municipalities who have located PFAS in their water system, and I should make it clear, ours were identified some time ago in very small amounts, and the only well in which PFAS was located was taken offline. Since almost immediately since the time of discovery, we have been working with CDPHE and have actually been part of a pilot program with grant money from the state to essentially study different treatment methods for the filtration, for lack of a better word, of PFAS out of the water system. So we don't have what we believe are now or will ultimately be very large damage claims. And by very large, I mean in the many millions, or at least several millions. Ours are likely to stay below that forever. At any rate, these first two settlements that have been approved by the court are an opt-out situation. So if you are a municipality who either knows that you have PFAS now or is busy testing to discover whether you did, if you are one of those municipalities, you must either participate in the settlement or affirmatively act to opt out by the middle of December. If the town were to opt out, all that means is we have not waived any claims against 3M or DuPont, and we are also not entitled to make claims in that settlement. In other words, we're free to go sue 3M or DuPont anytime we want. The matters of proof and the years of discovery and the costs of that sort of litigation against that sort of entity would require that we, in my opinion, would require that we have much more substantial damage claim than what we think that we do. So for that reason, my recommendation at least, is that we not opt out of these settlement agreements, that we proceed to, by not doing so, we will be in, and then we proceed into the process for the submittal of claims. The town, under both settlement agreements, is in an advantageous position because the settlement agreements themselves have bifurcated claimants, basically between those municipalities who know or knew as of June of this year that they had PFAS and those who don't, those who are out busy testing right now to figure out if they do. It's basically phase 1 and phase 2 claimants. The bulk of the settlement funds in each case in 3M, I believe, of a total settlement that will be not less than 10.5 billion, not more than 12.5 billion, something close to 7.5 or 8 billion has been reserved for phase 1 claimants. So we're in a good position that way because we knew early, we did all the testing, we can establish it. The problem and then the risk anybody takes in a settlement agreement is that there will only be so many funds distributed amongst all of the claimants. And nobody can tell you how many claimants there are out there. Only the special master who's assigned to dole out the money after all the claims are received will be able to tell you that. And then what will the dollar amount of that claim be? So as I've described in the memo, while it is uncertain, what we do know is that the criteria under which the special master is to distribute settlement funds is a formula that is to be based primarily on the volume of contaminated water and the level of contamination. What else would you do, right? When you're talking about various parties making claims against the one party for a contamination event, how would you equitably distribute that money other than based on volume or severity of? So it makes sense, but I can't tell you what the ultimate dollar outcome is going to be. What I can tell you is the town is very likely to receive some funds to compensate it for some of the damages that we have sustained as a result of all this. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
If we opt in.
No.
We're in.
We are in, we are,
Unless
in,
we
we
opt
opt out. We would need to take affirmative action. So if there is a desire that we not participate in these settlement agreements, my request to you is you tell me that now, so I can get us opted out, because the deadlines are going to be right about the time of the December council meeting.
Sarsa wants to help us with that one, so.
Sarsa's not going to.
I'm sorry,
Good luck.
you mentioned a couple other class action lawsuits that are coming down the pike. Do you foresee them being similar in their?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I see that the DuPont and the 3M settlements are so similar as to think there has been coordination between the plaintiff's counsel in these various suits. So my suspicion is that yes, but I couldn't guarantee you. I haven't delved into those cases and looked at where I'm not even sure to the point where they're drafting settlement consent decrees yet.
Okay. But is it clear enough that we would be potentially eligible for those as well? In the
Yes,
same
because
manner, because it's the same
We don't
concept.
know where the PFAS came. Nobody knows where the
Right.
PFAS came from. We just know that X, Y, and Z manufacturers
Made it.
made PFAS. And so I don't know this for certain either, but I suspect that, 3M is on the hook for up to 12.5 billion. I think DuPont was I think I said in the memo, like it was some fraction of it. And I suspect that was the ratio that each of those manufacturers bore to their production of PFAS on the market as a whole, is I suspect that's the way it's coming down. You'd be crazy to agree to it to DuPont if you were DuPont otherwise, because the idea is nobody can tell where the PFAS in their well came from. We just know that you group of manufacturers made all this, so it had to come from one of you. And through these settlement agreements, all of the manufacturers ultimately relieve themselves from future liability based on these payments.
Are the revenues restricted to the water fund, general fund? Should we?
Not my understanding.
How about from our?
Although I want to think about that one, because you're right. We're talking about a government-run enterprise. I want to think about that, but as you make me ponder it, I'm thinking that those monies are going to have to go back into the water system fund from which they came originally. I mean, if we have damages out of our general fund because we were giving administrative or other support to the water fund, okay. But that money, as you know, came from a restricted purpose, and I presume the water fund has borne most of the cost of all of it. And time is involved, and Leslie's time is involved, and Jeff's time is involved. That didn't come out of the water fund, it came out of the general fund, right?
Well, I believe some of their salary comes out of the water fund, if I'm correct.
Does it?
Some of mine does.
Well, I believe that yours.
But I think, yes, I do believe that some of their salary, a percentage of it comes from the water fund, because they're managing.
So, good on.
Comment on this agenda item?
Well, I have one more question. So since we received a grant so most of the damages come out of the water fund, but some of that was paid for by the grant, do we forfeit that as a damage?
Mitigate our damages, yes.
It would, so that's taken into consideration. Okay,
I won't be able to claim damages for costs that have been covered by a grant from someone else.
right.
But
Do they get to that? Would they? Would
So that's
CDPHE be considered in this?
But no, because they're not a municipality or a water system provider.
This is basically.
Even though they're incurring some of the, I mean, essentially they're encouraging some of the damages.
Yeah, well, they got an attorney general can go sue for them if they want.
Just curious.
And they may have, there may be a suit going on from the several states. I wouldn't guarantee that there wasn't, so the state may get some of their money back too. I doubt the state's gonna sit back and watch municipalities get their money without getting their hand in the till.
Do you want to add something where you
No,
just,
I-
great,
Yeah.
appreciate it. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I will go back to public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment on this agenda item? No, I'll close public comment.
I happen to be here, so I, been involved in class action suits before. It's an easy way to just say, well, take whatever is given as a settlement and move on with your lives. Expect, hopefully, we have minimal damages, so it won't really matter. But whatever damages you want to try and collect, expect a fraction on the dollar to get back. Yeah.
So, Dad, how does the motion need to be? Does it need to be a motion or is it just a juror?
I would ask for a motion directing the staff to not opt out of the settlement and to proceed to make claims in those class actions.
And before a motion.
Negative.
Not opt out.
Oh, it can be.
Actually mean.
I'm asking you to tell me to not opt out. Thank you.
We should definitely have the English teacher make the double negative motion.
Making sure.
Before we make a motion, I'd like to challenge any other municipality to test their own water. And they should go down the road as well, because everybody for a very long time was pointing the finger at us as far as PFAS, and we've got, we took care of it as soon as we heard about it. We have the best water in the country as far as I understand. And everyone else should be testing for it as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we
Not opt out.
not opt out of the PFAS class action settlement agreement.
Moved to not opt out by Councilmember Linko. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Aronson. Is there any discussion? Call the question, please.
Blanco.
Yes.
Held.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley. Yes. Mortensen.
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Scripture, Adrian.
Yes.
That passes.
Do you have the language for the executive?
Dad, I had a quick question. Next, items on this evening's agenda are both executive sessions. Do you want, can we enter them into in one
grand
long
motion?
grand motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant, I can't see that tonight, to sections 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses E CRS to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, to develop strategies for negotiations, and to instruct negotiators concerning the potential extraterritorial water service agreement for Lake Hill development. And that's agenda item 1. Then agenda item 2 would be an executive session pertinent to sections 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses A concerning the potential purchase of certain real property by the town, and pertinent to sections 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses E to determine positions relative to matters subject to negotiations, to develop strategies for negotiators, and to instruct negotiators concerning the potential purchase of said property for affordable housing purposes.
Thank you. It's been moved to enter executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Skripek. Adrian, any discussion? Call the question, please.
Oh,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Carly. Yes. Martin.
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Adrian. Yes. Blanco.
Yes.